What up, sports fans? Waxon Wednesday, Jake Waxman, Tyler Level, two guys talk sports. Let's get this March Madness show on the road. And I just gave you a huge spoiler. March Madness, that's all we're going to be talking about, or college hoops. So I'm going to start with this. West Virginia, who just missed the NCAA tournament, just missed it. One of the first four out. And of course, one can make the case that they probably should have been in over North Carolina, based if you compare the resumes. Virginia had about 5 more quad 1 wins than North Carolina, for being exact. So, West Virginia, they missed the NCAA tournament, and unfortunately, the hits just keep on coming for them. So, about a couple hours, or at least a day or two later, it was announced that their head coach, Darian DeVries, or DeVries, forgive whichever way it's pronounced. I'll go with Darian DeVries. So, it was announced that Coach DeVries is leaving West Virginia to take on the Indiana University. He is taking the Indiana University head coaching job, or the basketball job at Indiana. So Darian DeVries, he goes from West Virginia to Indiana after just one season with the Mountaineers. Just one season. Now, on paper, this looks like a very good hire for Indiana. The guy's got a lot of experience, did a really great job with Drake before moving on to West Virginia. And West Virginia, they came close in the first year with Darian DeVries, close to the NCAA tournament. Some can argue that and I'm even willing to argue that they probably should have been in the NCAA tournament, said North Carolina. And now, after just one season at West Virginia, he's taking on the Indiana job. So, on paper, this looks like a good hire. But we'll see. We'll see what makes this guy different compared to the other guys that Indiana has hired. But until I see what he could do, this hire to me looks like more of the same for Indiana. Not saying that Darian DeVries isn't a good coach. He seems like a good coach. But he's going to have a lot on his plate. And after spending just one season at West Virginia, oh boy, I'm just not sure how much that will help him as he moves from the Mountaineers to Bloomington. And, when I say that Coach DeVries is going to have a lot on his hands, it's not just, building a new team through the portal. Because a lot of guys, and convincing some guys to return from the transfer portal. Because a lot of IU players, as expected, are in the portal. But he's going to have to quickly get a handle on the alumni. Okay, I'm just saying. He's going to have to send out a message to the alumni saying, hey, this is going to take time to build, all right? All right? Can't expect a national championship run or a Final Four run every single season. You can't expect those kind of results immediately. This stuff takes time. So, he's got, obviously, what I'm saying is the alumni and the fan base at Indiana, all right, they got to be patient with this guy. We'll see what he can do. And I mean, while he did a good job at Drake, hey, just because you were successful at a lower division school, and just because you were successful in a powerful basketball conference or a Power 4 or 5 conference in college hoops, just because you were successful in one of those conferences does not mean the success is going to transfer. And you know what? As I mentioned, with the way the Indiana job is and the culture around Indiana is and the way things are at Indiana University, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he has a tough time there. And I say that because those Indiana fans, they got high expectations, or a lot of them do. And Indiana has had trouble. They've just had a lot of trouble since firing Bobby Knight. They have really had trouble stringing together a successful coaching run. They've had, since Bobby Knight, Indiana has had 7 different coaches. So we're going to find out what makes Darian DeVries different from the others that Indiana hired. Like, we all thought that Mike Woodson was a good hire. Even I thought that was a good hire for Indiana at first, but that didn't pan out. And he's going from, and this is a challenging transition for Coach DeVries, because he's going from the Big 12, which is a tough conference itself, to the Big 10, where it's difficult to win. One can make the case that the Big Ten is the most difficult conference to build a winning culture in, because there's so many good programs you got to compete with. You got to compete with Purdue. You got Michigan, who's back on track thanks to Dusty May. You got Michigan State, Tom Izzo. You got also Maryland. You got to compete with, in Illinois. A lot of programs. It's hard to build momentum, and it's hard to build up a program in the Big Ten. Now, Indiana, of course, the one benefit, as mentioned before, the NIL, okay? Indiana's got a great NIL program, so that should help him a lot. But now it's up to Coach DeVries to coach up what he's got in his first year. And I guess in some final thoughts, this is tough for West Virginia. They just missed the tournament, and now they end up losing their coach. Their coach, after just one season, ends up bolting to Indiana. And even though West Virginia themselves have a very good tradition of college basketball, like they love basketball in West Virginia, and you know what? Very successful program there. Been to a couple Final Fours. In spite of that, it's not enough to keep. You know what? Nowadays we're looking at an age of college basketball where no matter where you're at, any coach can get poached. Even if you're a program like West Virginia, it doesn't matter that you're in like the Big 12 conference. If a bigger name from like say the Big 10 or even the SEC comes calling, those coaches are going to take that job no matter when it comes. It's tough. So I feel really bad for West Virginia basketball and their fans. Now the program's in chaos and they got to start all over again. And I'm sure they weren't planning on this. But, you know, sadly, this is the college landscape to this day. Coaches and players are gonna find better deals in one of those NIL rich schools or money rich schools, and they'll go there as soon as the opportunity or the door opens. So, all right, and I don't want to sound too bitter. And of course, you guys know me; I'm a Purdue fan, and I don't want this to come off as sounding bitter. Okay, but honestly, I hope this hire does not work out for Indiana. I just hope. And the one reason is because I feel sorry for West Virginia and their fans. No fan base. I feel bad. No college basketball program nor their fan base deserves to go through something like this. Nobody deserves to go through getting a really good coach and then him leaving for 1 year. Or maybe you could say, I hope you should say, I hope DeVries doesn't do well at Indiana. Look, I wish the guy all the best. Seems like a good guy. But there's things I just hate about the current landscape of college basketball. And this is one of them, where the almighty dollar speaks. And Indiana had that money, and they put it to use. And good on them. So, we'll see how it goes. And being a Purdue fan and me feeling bad for the West Virginia fans, I'll say, hope it's just one of those another one of those cycles. Or the continuation of a cycle of frustration for Indiana basketball. So, that's just my thought overall. Now, in all seriousness, it seems on paper it's a good hire for Indiana basketball. We'll see if it works out, though. If I'm a Hoosier fan, I'd be cautiously optimistic. So, you should feel good about it, but with caution. Exercise caution on this, because you guys have been here before. So, just my thoughts on Indiana hiring Darian DeVries. Sorry if I said Devin. Keep mixing up those names. So this is just my thoughts on Indiana hiring Darian DeVries away from West Virginia, the Mountaineers of West Virginia. All right. So I mentioned in a reaction video that I posted that North Carolina. Here we go again. I've got questions about the committee's handling of the selection and why the AD for North Carolina was on the selection committee. Of course, he was going to make sure North Carolina got in the tournament. You know, we all said this, North Carolina doesn't deserve to, or the resume. Well, that's all going out the window. Or that's all becoming irrelevant because North Carolina made a statement. All right, in their first game, in the first 4 games against San Diego State, they made a gosh darn statement. Like, they absolutely destroyed San Diego State. And, they might end up ruining some people's brackets. So, the question of whether or not North Carolina deserves to be in the tournament. It'll still linger, but it's pretty much gone out the window. Like, it's irrelevant now because North Carolina, they sent a message that, you know what, hey, we don't care whether or not you think we deserve to be in the tournament. We're in the tournament, and we're gonna mess things up. That's what Hubert Davis and his Tar Heel squad are setting out to do. They could be bracket busters. Could end up causing a whole lot of chaos in the South. They're playing Ole Miss in their first matchup, so not going to be an easy matchup for Ole Miss. But that North Carolina team, okay, regardless of what you think, we can say all we want that they don't deserve to be in the tournament. I still believe they don't deserve to be in the tournament because the resume wasn't strong enough. Well, that's just smoke now. That's largely irrelevant because they went up against another team in San Diego State that just barely got in, and you know what? They just absolutely clobbered them, just shot them out of Dayton, to say the least. And right now, I think North Carolina, they can make a lot of noise in this NCAA tournament. They could make a run. So whether or not like it or not, like North Carolina being in the tournament or not, they're here to stay, and they're here to cause some damage. They don't care. They're here to send a message. That's pretty much now what we can say about North Carolina being in the NCAA tournament. You can, like we said, resumes don't matter anymore. Like net ranking, all that stuff. Quad 1 wins. It's all done now, and it doesn't matter what we think. We can only for those who are rooting against North Carolina, you could just only hope that somebody like Ole Miss knocks them out of the tournament, brings it back to reality. But I think they're here to stay, and I got a feeling they're going to cause some damage. Like, not to the tournament, like, physically, but, like, they're going to end some seasons for some teams that are hoping to make a run. So, we're going to find out. North Carolina's in the tournament, and not only are they here to stay in the tournament, to prove that they belong in the tournament, and not only they're here to prove that they're here to stay in this tournament, but it would not surprise me if they got some big aspirations, like a deep tournament run in their mindset. So, time to embrace. Hey, it's time to see how far this North Carolina team goes. That's all I gotta say now. And finally, I'm ready to reveal my bracket. All right, so by the time me and Tyler Lavalette have our next episode, or next Friday roundtable on Friday, the tournament's going to be well underway. So I'm just going to reveal my bracket to you, sports fans. So here's what I am going to do. So I'm going to show you my bracket, and you can pause this video if you like, if you want to see my bracket. Without further ado, here's what I got. Forgive me if this is all in your guys' face. Okay, hold on, sorry. Alright, I'll hold it right here, and then I'll let you pause in this frame if you guys want to read my bracket as a whole. So, there it is. Oh, sorry. This right here, this is my bracket. This is what I got. This is who my national champion is, and these are my final 4 picks. And, whoo boy. We'll see how right I am. Either I'm going to be accurate, or I'm going to be burning this bracket before the Friday roundtable even begins. Who knows? Or I might be burning this bracket before the second weekend. We're going to find out. So, without further ado. So, that's my bracket. And I'll just tell you, okay, I'll just get straight to it. So, for those of you who don't want to take the time to pause and see it, I don't blame you. So, here are my final 4 predictions. Out of the South, I have Michigan State. Out of the East, I have the Duke Blue Devils. Out of the Midwest, I have the Tennessee Volunteers. And coming out of the West, I've got the Johnnies of St. John. Or the Red Storm as they're called, but people call them the Johnnies. So, Michigan State, Duke, Tennessee, and St. John's. That's my final 4. My national championship, I've got Michigan State taking on Duke, and I've got Duke winning it all. We'll see how accurate I am. This is like, what? I think the 3rd or 4th time I picked Duke to win a national championship. The first time I ever made a bracket, I picked Duke, and they actually won it, but they haven't won it since then, so maybe I need to stop picking Duke. But I got a good feeling about this Duke team. I feel like the one concern I do have for Duke is whether or not Cooper Flagg's going to be ready, or 100%. I have no doubt he's going to play, but will he be 100%? But even if he's not 100%, this Duke team is deep. They're very poised, very balanced on both ends of the ball. And I mentioned in a video where I gave you guys some tips on like filling out a bracket to keep an eye on like KenPom and like the net rankings. Duke is very highly ranked when it comes to both offense and defensive efficiencies. So that, and a team like that is one that's most likely to win it all. And I think Duke has those, with everything kept in mind from like the players they have to their rankings in the net. That's why I'm going with Duke to win it all. And even with the injuries, I think they are more than capable of at least getting past the first weekend. And even then, they could do much more damage even without Cooper Flagg. It's a very balanced team, a very deep team. In terms of the South, Auburn, okay? I thought about picking Auburn to win it all. I really did. They've been really great all season long. They got the most Quad 1 wins. But I think they may have peaked too early. And here's the thing. 9 out of 10 NCAA tournaments, the number 1 seed does not win it all. And Auburn's the overall number 1 seed. Like, when I say number 1 seed, I don't mean like... I mean, like, the team that's ranked number 1 overall in the tournament that has, like, the jersey choice overall. And Auburn has that number 1 overall seed. But I think that's a curse sometimes. And I think Auburn's about to learn what kind of a curse it is. As good of a team as they have, I think they peaked too early. And you know what? I really like Michigan State to beat them in the Elite Eight and go to the Final Four. Because Michigan State, they're tough on defense. And that defense is good enough where they can Uno reverse card the Auburn Tigers, who are tough on defense as well. So, the one thing that concerns me about MSU is their offense. That much I will admit. But they've got a strong enough defense where I think they can ride that defense to the Final Four. Maybe even the national championship. I mentioned I got them in the national championship. I think they could really give Janai Broome and that whole Auburn team a whole lot of headaches with their defensive efficiencies. So, for that reason, as well as a consistent enough offense, I'm going with Michigan State to knock out Auburn in the Elite Eight. All right, and I'll move on to the Midwest now. Before I move, so in the East, I've got Duke taking on Wisconsin in the Elite Eight. Wisconsin, I think, can make a run. I really do think so. They got a deep team. They got plenty of shooters. And John Tonje, absolute phenomenal basketball player. But I'm just not sure they're going to be I think Duke is just going to be a bit too much for them in the Elite Eight. Now in terms of the Midwest. All right. I will say this. For Purdue, they got a favorable draw in the fact that they could make a Sweet 16 run. That much I will say. But will they do it? I'm just not sure which Purdue team are we going to get. The one that could punch above its weight and win the games they shouldn't, or the one that just loses games in frustrating ways as they have throughout the season. And you know what? I don't know. I've got Purdue in the round of 32 at most. That's as far as I'll go. I just don't. I think they've got enough to get past High Point. That High Point game is going to be. I think High Point, they got that length. They can give Purdue a lot of trouble. I think Purdue just gets past them. But I think Clemson's going to knock Purdue out in the round of 32. And Clemson's another team that could be a Final Four team. They were so close last year. But in the Midwest, I've got Clemson taking on Tennessee in the Elite Eight. And Clemson, good as they are, I think Tennessee's improved. And Tennessee might be the best team in the SEC, secretly. Even though they're not a number 1 seed, they might be the best team in the SEC. And that's something I believe, as indicated in my bracket. I've got Tennessee coming out of the Midwest and going to their first Final Four in school history. But only because they're not going to match up with Purdue. Well, not just because of that. If they meet up with Purdue, that's absolute cinema. But I don't think Tennessee and Purdue are going to meet up this time. And I think Tennessee is going to end up finally breaking that glass ceiling and getting to their first Final Four in program history on the men's side of things. Clemson's going to come close, but just won't be enough for them. So, and then in the Midwest, or the West now, Okay, I'm going to be on. And by the way, here's my. Now in the Midwest, or not the Midwest, but in the West, I've got St. John's and Maryland playing in the Elite Eight. That's right. A lot of people are saying this Florida team, the Florida Gators, might be the best team in this year's NCAA tournament. I'll believe it when I see it. They're great, don't get me wrong, but I think they're young. And they may not be ready yet for. And I think when the lights come on, I don't know if this team, which was largely built in the portal, I don't know if they'll be strong enough to get past a team like Maryland, who I think is tough and can make a run. So I got Maryland upsetting Florida in the Sweet 16. So, a lot of talent on that Florida team, a lot of poise, a lot of great skill. The problem is youth. That's the problem I have with Florida. They're just young. And then St. John's. Ooh. Let me just tell you, I don't like Rick Pitino. I think he's a cheater. But he has done, no denying, he has done a great job coaching up the Red Storm. And I think Maryland, they're going to have a great run. They'll make the Elite Eight, but they're going to have a tough time with St. John's, who's efficient on both ends of the floor and disciplined. So I got St. John's coming out of the West in the final and going to the Final Four. Rick Pitino, man. That wherever he goes, programs improve. So you guys are probably wondering who's some of my big upsets. I've got Gonzaga upsetting Houston in the round of 32. That's one of my bigger upsets. I'm going to go with Yale making a Sweet 16 run and falling short against Auburn. I think they're going to upset Texas A&M and take down Michigan. Also, I've only got one 12-5 upset. I'm going Colorado State over Memphis. So that's one of my bigger upsets. Let's see, what else do I have? Here's another upset that I'm predicting. Akron over Arizona. Going with Akron over the Wildcats of Arizona. So just to give you... And that Creighton team, I will say this. I think they'll make it past Louisville, but a lot of people are... One other popular massive upset pick is Creighton over Auburn. I've got Auburn just getting by Creighton, but it also wouldn't surprise me to see Creighton upset Auburn. And then another upset that I have. I've got Drake making a Sweet 16 run. First they upset Missouri, and then I think they take down Texas Tech in the round of 32 and make it to the Sweet 16. So, just to give you guys an idea of what I have in my bracket. Now, I'll show you more of this on my Friday Roundtable podcast with Tyler Lavelle. Or, me and Tyler will do another Friday Roundtable. We'll bring our brackets with, and I will show you guys more of what I've got on that bracket, or how it's looking come Friday. But anyway, this is what you've just seen is my bracket, and what I've just told you about is my bracket for the 2025 NCAA tournament. Either it's going to look good, or it's going to go up in flames pretty quickly. Wouldn't surprise me if the latter happens. All right, on to this day in sports history. And on this day, the 19th of March, 1880, 42nd Grand National, Tommy Beasley